Now we are going to continue with the topic of connective tissue. Today we are going to discuss the connective tissue fibers and the ground substance. Just revising it again, what was the composition of connective tissue? I told you in the previous lecture that there are three components of the connective tissue: cellular component and the extracellular component. Cellular component included the two categories of cell, the resident cell and the migrant cells. And the extracellular component includes two heads, the fibers and the ground substance. Fibers include three categories of fibers: collagen fibers, elastic fibers, and the reticular fibers, while the extracellular component includes the glycosaminoglycans, macromolecules, and the glycoproteins. I told you in the last previous lecture, just imagine a fruit trifle. Yeah, in a big bowl, the fruit trifle is made by placing pieces of biscuit or these cake pieces below. Then you pour in the custard, and in the custard you put in different fruits and cherries and jellies. So the base is base here, which was the cake and the biscuit, consider is as the fibers. The liquid part, the part that was custard, considered is as the ground substance, the major part that is filling up the whole plate. And the uh, the tiny bits of fruits and cherries, they are the cells. So just imagine the fruit trifle. Whenever you get a question regarding the components of connective tissue, bring in the imagination a fruit trifle bowl. And regarding these things, you can identify the components of the connective tissue. This is a schematic diagram showing the connective tissue. The purple pink base behind is the ground substance. Then you can see the climbing fibers, the spider-like fibers. They are the different fibers: elastic fibers, collagen fibers, and reticular fibers. Then you have cells in this placed in the ground substance and between the fibers. The cells can be migrant cells and the resident cells, which we have talked about in the previous lecture. They can be fibroblasts, adipocytes. Then you have the different types of mass lymphocytes, mast cells located in the connective tissue. So talking about the connective tissue fiber, the fibrous component of the connective tissue are in fact elongated structure formed from proteins that polymerize after excretion from the fibroblast. So fibroblasts secrete the proteins that polymerize and give these fibers. The three main types of fibers in the connective tissue are collagen fibers, reticular fibers, and the elastic fibers. Collagen and reticular are both formed by proteins of collagen family, and the elastic fibers are composed mainly of the protein elastin. These fibers are distributed unequally among different types of connective tissue, with the predominant fiber type usually responsible for conferring the specific tissue properties. So first of all, we shall talk about collagen fibers. Collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body. It represents about 30% of the dry weight. There are several different varieties and families of collagen. About 28 to 30 types of collagens have been discovered. So there are many varieties of collagen, and collagen today in this modern world, collagen plays a very important role in the cosmetic industries, dermatological industries. You have so many ads about collagen face masks, collagen creams, collagen being used for eating purposes. So what is collagen? It is a very important protein, and it is the most abundant protein in the body. It is widely distributed in the body, present in the bone, hair, nails, teeth. So we are going to discuss it in detail now. So collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body. It represents about 30% of its dry weight. It is flexible but inelastic. It is wavy in appearance, thin, elongated, single colorless, white in bundle but appear pink under light microscope in H&E staining. There are about 20 to 30 families of collagen proteins. Collagen is synthesized by fibroblast basically, and it is also synthesized by osteoblast in the bones, odontoblast in the teeth, and reticular cells. Composition of the protein collagen includes amino acids, and it has different contribution by different amino acid. The major amino acid that is playing role is glycine. It is about 35%. Then you have proline 12% and hydroxyproline 10%. Other small amino acids includes alanine, arginine, and glutamate. So the main component of the fiber, collagen fiber, is glycine protein. As we have discussed that there are about 20 to 28 to 30 families of collagen that exist in the vertebrates. The most important ones we are going to discuss, and they can be grouped into different categories according to the structure formed by the interacting subunits of the amino acid. So you have a fibrillar type of collagen that includes collagen type 1, 2, 3, and 5 and 11. Collagen type 1 is the most abundant and widely distributed collagen. It forms large eosinophilic bundles called collagen fibers. They often densely fill the connective tissue and form structures such as dermis, organ capsules, and tendons. Type 1 is basically restricted to the bones and tendon and teeth. Type 2 collagen fibers are found in the cartilage. I have highlighted the main location, so you must know these main locations. Type 1 for the bones, type 2 for the cartilage, and for the type 3 you have skin, muscles, and blood vessels. Type 5 is found in the fetal tissues, placenta, and it participates in type 1 collagen function. Type 11 is found in the cartilage, and it participates with the type 2 in the type 2 in the cartilage for the collagen function. Then you have the linking collagens. Linking collagens or the anchoring collagens are short collagens that link fibrillar collagen to one another, forming larger fibers and to other components of the extracellular matrix. Type 7 collagen binds type 4 collagen and anchors the basal lamina to the underlying reticular lamina in the basement membrane. So they are the linking collagens and the anchoring collagen. Type 9 is found in the cartilage and vitreous body. Type 12 is found in the embryonic tendon and skin. Type 14 is found in the fetal skin. And type 7 is found anchors to the epithelial basal membrane. Then you have the sheet forming collagens. That is very important. Sheet forming collagen is type 4. The important collagens at the MBBS level are collagen type 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and this 4. 4 is very important. This comes in your MCQs. Type 4 is a sheet forming collagen. It is found in all basal lamina and external laminas, and it supports the delicate structures. The subunits of collagen type 1, the most abundant collagen, assemble to form extremely strong fibrils, which are then bundled together and further to form a large structure called collagen fibers. So first of all, you have the subunits, which are then going to assemble and form fibrils, which are going to further bundle and form the fibers. The fibrils cut longitudinally and transversely display alternating dark and light bands in cross section. The large bundles of type 1 collagen fibril appear as acidophilic collagen fibers in the connective tissue where they fill extracellular spaces. Subunits of these fibers are excreted by the fibroblasts. So the collagen synthesis occur in many cell types but is a specialty of cells that produce various kind of connective tissue. The initial pro-collagen alpha chains are made in the cell's rough endoplasmic reticulum. The collagen gene family is very large. So many different alpha chains have been identified varying in length and sequence. In the endoplasmic reticulum, 3 alpha chains. So you have 3 alpha chains that are selected, aligned, and stabilized by disulfide bonds. They are folded, 3 alpha chains are folded to form a triple helix, which is the defining feature of collagen. The triple helix undergo exocytosis and is cleaved to a rod-like pro-collagen molecule. So first of all, alpha chain, 3 alpha chain are going to twine and form a triple helix. Triple helix is then going to form a pro-collagen. It is going to be exocytosed and cleaved to a rod-like pro-collagen molecule, which is the basic subunit from which fibers or sheets are assembled. These subunits may be homotrimeric, in which all the 3 chains are identical, or heterotrimeric, in which all three chains have different sequence. So different combination of pro-collagen alpha chain produce various different kinds of collagen with different functions and structural properties. In most abundant form of collagen type 1, each pro-collagen molecule or the subunit has two alpha 1 and one alpha 2 peptide chains, which are right-handed helix held together by hydrogen bonds. The length of each molecule, sometimes called a tropocollagen, is 300 nanometers, and its width is 1.5 nanometer. Each complete turn of helix spans about 8.6 nanometer. And when you know the collagen, when it is heated, is going to convert into gelatin. So in this electron microscopic picture, you can see alternating dark and light bands, which are displaying the structures of the fibrils. And then you have the alpha chain. Three alpha chains are going to intertwine and form the helix, triple helix structure, which is going to form collagen fibrils. The collagen fibrils are then going to be organized into collagen fibers. So in the most common type, variety type, collagen type 1, the pro-collagen molecule, the subunit, has two alpha 1 chain and one alpha 2 peptide chain. These are going to twine into right-handed structure, and the length of each is about 300 nanometer, and width is about 1.5 nanometer. Each turn of the helix spans about a distance of 8.6 nanometer, and then they are going to arrange into collagen fibrils, which are going to further arrange and form collagen fibers. Now talking about the synthesis of collagen by fibroblast cell, you can see fibroblast written, nucleus, cytoplasm, and then extracellular space. So which steps of collagen synthesis takes place inside the cell of the fibroblast and which takes place outside the cell? These are also important for MCQs. So the pro-collagen alpha chains are synthesized inside the cytoplasm of the fibroblast. Pro-alpha chains are the backbone. Then hydroxylation, they are formed in by the rough endoplasmic reticulum of the fibroblast. Then after the formation, synthesis of the pro-collagen alpha chain, hydroxylation of the prolyl and lysyl residues in the endoplasmic reticulum occurs. And this hydroxylation, adding of the hydroxyl ions, takes place in the presence of vitamin C. It requires the vitamin C. Then after attachment of soluble galactosyl and glucosyl sugars to specific hydroxyl residues takes place. This process of adding sugar is called glycosylation. So first of all, formation of pre-pro-collagen molecules, pro-alpha chains, then hydroxylation, which takes place in the presence of vitamin C. After hydroxylation, sugar ions are added. This is known as glycosylation. And then triple helix structure is formed, which is known as pro-collagen. Assembly of the pro-collagen molecule, which is a triple helix, and then transport of the soluble pro-collagen molecule to the Golgi complex. In the Golgi complex, the pro-collagen is packaged into secretory vesicles, and secretory vesicle assisted by microtubules and microfilament transport the pro-collagen to the cell surface. And when it is on the cell surface, it is exocytosed out. The pro-collagen molecule is then exocytosed out. So till the pro-collagen, this process is happening inside the fibroblast cell, and then pro-collagen molecule is exocytosed out into the extracellular space. And in the extracellular, when it is exocytosed out to the extracellular space, the pro-collagen peptidases cleave most of the non-helical terminal peptides, transforming the pro-collagen into insoluble collagen molecules, which aggregate into collagen fibrils. So cleavage of the pro-collagen takes place in the extracellular space. After the cleavage, it becomes tropocollagen. It then forms cross-linking and stabilized bonds, forming collagen fibers. Cross-linking requires enzyme lysyl oxidase. So these process is the formation of collagen synthesis. Now coming on to the clinical applied anatomy of collagen. In regard to this applied anatomy, you must know what are keloids or scar. ये आते हैं आपके SCQ में and also in the clinical scenarios. Keloids is a local swelling caused by abnormally large amount of collagen that form in the scars of the skin. They often occur in individuals of African descent and can be troublesome to manage Not only they can be disfiguring, but excision is always followed by reoccurrence. They can reoccur again. So they are formed by abnormal amount of collagen in the body after the scar healing, and they lead to an ugly scar. And they can also reoccur again and again. Clinical disorders resulting from defect in collagen synthesis. If there is a defect in the synthesis of collagen type 1 which was present in bones, so it can result in a disease known as osteogenesis imperfecta. Imperfecta matlab imperfect osteogenesis formation of bones. So this results in a patient presenting with spontaneous fractures, and there is hearing loss, cardiac insufficiency related defects. So the main defect is spontaneous fractures, osteogenesis imperfecta. It results from defect in the collagen type 1. Defects in the synthesis of collagen type 3 can result in Ehlers-Danlos disease type 4. It results in hypermobility of digits. There is a hypermobility, digits are very mobile, and it can result in mortality, death by rupture of aorta, because the aorta is hyper extensible. It can extend and then rupture, so it can result in rupture of aorta as well, the major vessel. Then other defects can be scurvy, which results from lack of vitamin C, which was a factor used for the hydroxylation of the prolyl and lysyl ends of the collagen. Uh, so if there is a lack of vitamin, it is going to result in bleeding from the gums and petechial hemorrhages. These are the clinical diagrams. First one is Ehlers-Danlos, hypermobility of joints and digits. This results from defects in collagen type 3. Then you have the second one is osteogenesis imperfecta, which is a triad including blue sclera, deformed teeth, and brittle bone. This is osteogenesis imperfecta. And the upper one on the right side, you can see bleeding from the gums. This is due to lack of vitamin C, which is required for the hydroxylation of collagen fibrils. Now coming on to the reticular fibers. Reticular fibers are a type of collagen type 3 fibers. Reti means network or thread-like. They form an extensive network. They're extremely thin, about 0.5 to 2 microns in diameter, and they form networks. And these are highly glycosylated fiber. They have a rich sugar content. About 10% carbohydrates are present in reticular fiber, as opposed to collagen fibers where there was 1% carbohydrate. And they form networks. They are not regularly stained by H&E staining, so you need special stains to stain them to visualize them. They're extremely thin. As they are extremely thin, they are not visible in H&E preparation, regular preparation, so you need special stains. They are argyrophilic. They love silver stain. They can be easily stained with silver, and in silver stain they appear as black by impregnation of the silver salt. And this argyrophilia is due to the high content of sugar chains bound to the type 3 collagen. Reticular fibers can also be stained with PAS staining, periodic acid sift staining, because of the sugar content in them. And they can be seen by polarizing microscope using Cirrus red stain. Reticular fibers are produced by fibroblast, and they occur in the reticular lamina of basement membranes, and typically also around adipocytes, smooth muscle, nerve fibers, and small blood vessels. Delicate reticular networks serve as a supportive stroma for the parenchymal secretory cell and rich microvasculature of the liver and endocrine glands. Abundant reticular fibers characterize the stroma of hemopoietic tissue, bone marrow, and some lymphoid organs like spleen and lymph nodes, where they support rapidly changing population of proliferating cells and phagocytic cells. So they are found in the embryonic tissue, wound healing, in the liver, endocrine gland, lymphoid glands, spleen, lymph nodes, and form a flexible network around the vessels. Now coming on to the third category of fibers, that are the elastic fibers. They are also very thin, and they form sparse network interspersed with collagen bundles in many organs. So the elastic fibers, as the name implies, has the ability to stretch. They have the ability to stretch and distend and return to the normal shape. They are found in large vessels, arteries, where elastin also forms sheets called elastic lamellae. Elastic fibers are not strongly acidophilic, so they stain poorly with H&E. They are stained more darker than collagen with stains such as orkin and aldehyde fustian. They stain darker than the collagen with these stain, orkin and aldehyde fustian. They appear wavy in appearance, and the elastic fibers are a composite of fibrillin microfibrils embedded in a large mass of cross-linked elastin. So fibrillin acts as a scaffold upon which elastin is deposited. Both these components are secreted by fibroblasts and produced elastic fiber in stepwise manner. Initially, microfibrils with diameter of 10 nanometer form from protein fibrillin and form several other glycoprotein. Microfibrils act as a scaffold upon which elastin is then deposited in a second step of elastic fiber formation. Elastin accumulates between the microfibrils surrounding most of these and eventually comprises most of the elastic fibers. The properties of elastic fibers and lamellae result from the structure of 60 kilodiene elastin subunit and the unique cross-link holding them. So the formation of elastic fibers follow through three stages: oxytocin, alanine, and elastic fibers. The single elastin molecules are deposited on the microfibrils, fibrillin proteins. Then they cross-link by lysyl oxidase. Then they further cross-link and they can be stretched and relaxed. Mature fibers can stretch and relax. The elastin polypeptides, a major component of elastic fibers, have multiple random coil domains that straighten or stretch under force and then relax. Most of the cross-links between elastic subunit consist of a covalent cyclic structure desmosine, each of which involves four converted lysine in two elastic molecules. So the coiling is due to desmosine, and they follow through three stages: oxytocin, alanine, and elastic stage. The oxytocin are 10 nanometer microfibril composed of various glycoprotein including fibromodulin type 1 and 2 and large molecule called fibrillin. They are non-elastic, highly resistant to pulling. They are found in the dermis and in the zonule of the eye. They do not contain protein elastin. They are highly resistant to pulling forces. So oxytocin, they don't contain elastin protein, but they have fibromodulin type 1 and 2 forming fibrillin. They have the scaffold here is formed of fibrillin proteins, but no elastin is deposited. And they are found in the dermis and zonule of the eye. Alanine is the next step in which irregular deposition of elastin occurs between the oxytocin fibers forming alanine. They have intermediate elasticity and they are found around the sweat gland and dermis. So the first step was formation of only fibrillin, microfibrillin proteins, no deposition of elastin. In alanine, irregular deposition of elastin occurs over the fibrillin proteins. So they have microfibrillin as well as elastin. The third step is in which you see yellow fibrils 0.2 to 1 micrometer. They are rich in elastin proteins. They are stretched easily. They are found in smooth muscle, skin, lungs, arteries, veins, elastic cartilage, and they are composed of microfibrils plus elastin proteins plus glycoproteins. So they are the final unit, elastic fibers. What is the difference between young skin and old skin? A very common nowadays concern is that we have wrinkles on skin, our skin is not glowing. So younger skin in comparison to older skin, in which there is more wrinkling in the older skin. Older skin has lost its collagen. It has low collagen level, low hyaluronic acid, low elastin fibers. But a younger skin has tighter glowing skin because of the composition of more collagen in it, more elastic fibers in it, and more ground substance, especially hyaluronic acid in it. So properties of elastin protein. Elastin protein is composed of amino acid glycine and proline. It is resistant to boiling and acid and alkaline extraction. It is hydrolyzed by enzyme pancreatic elastase, which can break it down. It stains weakly with HNE, and it is distributed in the elastic arteries, elastic cartilage, ligamentum nuchae in the neck, ligamentum flava of the vertebral column. These sites are very important. Coming on to the clinical correlate related to the elastin fibers. So the medical application includes mutation in the fibrillin gene, results in the syndrome known as Marfan syndrome. It is a disease characterized by lack of resistance in the tissues rich in elastic fibers. As the fibrillin is mutated, the gene is mutated, elastin cannot accumulate, so elastic fibers cannot form properly. This results in aortic swelling. Aorta is swelled, and the condition is known as aneurysm. When there is swelling of aorta, it is known as aortic aneurysm. And if the blood pressure is more, the aorta can rupture, leading to life-threatening condition. So this is a diagram showing normal aortic vessel and an aorta with large abdominal aneurysm, in which the elastic tissue is not malformed because of the mutation in the gene of fibrillin, and this is a complication of Marfan syndrome. The aortic aneurysm can rupture when there is increased blood flow and increased blood pressure. So can you identify the three different types of fibers seen in this connective tissue? The first one, the most broad one, are the collagen fibers. The thick one are the collagen fibers. Then these elastic one are the wavy ones, and the black ones are the reticular fibers. Now we are going to discuss about ground substance. Ground substance of the extracellular matrix is highly hydrated. It has a lot of water bound to it. It is transparent, complex mixture of macromolecules, particularly glycosaminoglycans, proteoglycans, and glycoproteins. It acts as a filling space. It fills the space between cells and fibers in the connective tissue, and because it is viscous, it acts as a lubricant and prevents the penetration of pathogens and invaders. Many macromolecule and physical properties of ground substance profoundly influence the variety of cellular activity. So it is going to fill the space between cells and fibers of the connective tissue. The properties include it is colorless, viscous, transparent, lubricant, and barrier to penetration of pathogens. The three main components of the ground substance includes GAGs, the glycosaminoglycans, proteoglycans, and the glycoproteins. You have a question coming in your UHS exams again and again, 5-mark question, describe GAGs. So you have to write GAGs means glycosaminoglycans. It is a major component of the ground substance present in the extracellular component of the connective tissue. And what are the different types of GAGs which we are going to study now. GAGs are also called mucopolysaccharides. They are long polysaccharide consisting of repeating disaccharide units, including uronic acid and hexosamine. So it has two components, uronic acid and hexosamine. The hexosamine can be a glucosamine or a galactosamine, and a uronic acid can be glucuronic acid or hydronic acid. So two components are present, two units, uronic acid and hexosamine. Uronic acid, in uronic acid you can have glucuronic acid or hydronic acid, and in hexosamine you can have a glucosamine or a galactosamine. With a molecular weight of hundreds to 1000 kilodaltons, hyaluronic acid is a long polymer of disaccharide glucosamine and glucuronate. It is synthesized directly into the extracellular matrix by enzyme complex hyaluronate synthase located in the cell membranes of many cells. Hyaluronic acid forms a dense viscous network of polymers which binds considerable amount of water, giving it an important role in allowing diffusion of molecules in the connective tissue and in lubricating various organs and joints. All other you have two classes, so hyaluronic acid and other glycosamine. So hyaluronic acid is a non-sulfated and high weight. Other glycuronic acid are much smaller, 10 to 40 kilodaltons. They are sulfated. Hyaluronic acid was non-sulfated. Other GAGs are sulfated, and they have covalently attached to proteins as a part of proteoglycans. They are synthesized in the Golgi complexes. So the different classification of GAGs, first of all you have hyaluronic acid and then you have other GAGs. Hyaluronic acid is a non-sulfated GAG. It comprised of glucuronic acid and glucosamine. It is distributed in the umbilical cord, synovial fluid, vitreous humor and cartilage. Other are sulfated GAGs, and these include chondroitin 4 sulfate, chondroitin 6 sulfate, dermatan sulfate, heparan sulfate, and keratan sulfate. All these have sulfates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sulfated GAGs and one non-sulfated, which is the hyaluronic acid. So chondroitin 4 and chondroitin 6 sulfate, as the name indicate, chondroitin, it is going to be formed in the cartilage. Chondroitin 4 and 6 are both found in the cartilage, whereas chondroitin 4 is also found in the bone. They have different hexosamine attached to it, and dermatan sulfate is found in the skin. You must know these distribution names, and the distribution is very important. Names of the GAG and distribution. Heparan sulfate is found in the heparan related to your blood, so it is going to be situated in the aorta, liver, lung, basal lamina. And then you have keratan sulfate. Keratan sulfate is found in the cornea. So you have 5 sulfated GAGs and one non-sulfated GAG, which is hyaluronic acid. Now we are going to talk about proteoglycans. Proteoglycans are composed of a core central protein to which are attached sulfated GAGs by covalent bonds. They are synthesized on the rough endoplasmic reticulum and mature in the Golgi, where the GAG side chains are added to them, and then they are secreted by the cells by the process of exocytosis. So these proteoglycans, they have a core, central core of protein to which GAGs, sulfated GAGs, are attached by covalent bonds, and they appear as a brush border, as a bottle brush. The bottle brush you have seen with which you clean the bottles, it's just like that. The bristles are just resembling the bristles of a bottle brush. So you have a central core of protein to which GAGs are attached, and these are highly hydrated. They have about 80 to 90% of the content is about carbohydrates. So proteoglycans, even though glycans, the word is coming after the word, the glycan content is more. They are 80 to 90% carbohydrate rich. There are two varieties, common varieties of proteoglycans. One are the extracellular matrix proteoglycans, and the other one are cell surface, which are attached to the surface of the cell. So the extracellular matrix proteoglycan, aggregan has a great mass of polysaccharide chains that are than the polypeptide chains. So they have a more mass of polysaccharides, more carbohydrate levels. So aggregan, the weight of aggregan is 250 kilodaltons. They are basically found in the cartilage. They are the major cartilage constituent are the proteoglycan aggregan, and aggregan is one of the best known proteoglycan. It is very large with a core protein bearing many chondroitin sulfate and keratin sulfate chains. Aggregan is bound via link protein to polymer of hyaluronic acid. In cartilage, aggregan hyaluron complexes fill the space between collagen fibers and the chondrocyte, and this is going to help in the physical properties of the cartilage tissue. So the functions of the aggregan, the proteoglycan aggregan, is it is responsible for the hydration. It acts as a shock absorber, and it is present in the major component of the cartilage. So it is going to have chondroitin sulfate and keratin sulfate, to which hyaluronic acid is going to be attached. It is attached to the hyaluronic acid by a link protein. You can see a link protein aside this chondroitin sulfate, keratin sulfate, protein core, and link protein linking it to hyaluron. So this is a major constituent of cartilage. It fills the spaces between the fibers, collagen type 2 fibers, and the chondrocyte. Then you have decorin. Decorin is a small proteoglycan. It has few GAG side chains that are attached to it, and it binds to the fibrils of collagen type 1. Aggregan was binding to collagen type 2, and this is binding to collagen type 1 fibrils. It is a very small proteoglycan, very low in weight, and a very minute proteoglycan. And then you have cell surface proteoglycan. Cell surface proteoglycan or includes syndecan. It has a transmembrane core proteins and serve as its additional attachment to the cell to the extracellular matrix. It attaches the cell to the extracellular matrix. It has an extracellular domain, intracellular domain, and a transmembrane part. The extracellular domain binds collagen and fibronectin. Intracellular part binds to the cytoskeleton of the cell. This proteoglycan syndican, it is found in the embryonic epithelial cells. It is found in plasma cells, lymphocyte, and mesenchymal cells. Now the third component, a third class of components that are present in the ground substance include the multi-adhesive glycoprotein. As the name indicates, it's an adhesive component. It is going to glue the components together. So it is multi-adhesive glycoproteins. First you have studied proteoglycans, and I told you in proteoglycans, glycan, the word was coming after proteins. So the component of glycans, carbohydrate was more in them. Here glycoproteins, protein, the word protein is coming after glycan. So here the protein component is more greater than the carbohydrate component. They are going to act as a gluing substance and all have multiple binding sites for cell surface receptors and for the matrix macromolecules. The adhesive glycoproteins are very large molecules with branch oligosaccharide chains, and they have important role in adhesion of cells to the substrate. They are going to attach the cells to the different substrates. Main three varieties of the glycoproteins you must know includes the fibronectin, laminin, and the integrin. These are the three main important ones. Apart from these, there are other glycoproteins as well, which include intactin, tenacin, which is present in the intrauterine life, chondronectin, which is present in the cartilage. Here you must know these three varieties: fibronectin, laminin, and integrin. So in this picture, you can see a cell and the extracellular matrix. You can see the plasma membrane, cytoskeleton. Just beneath the plasma membrane, it is the cytoskeleton is containing the actin filament. Then in the plasma membrane, you can see transmembrane integrin. Integrin is going to form receptors, transmembrane receptors, and this is going to link between extracellular matrix and the cytoskeleton. Integrin is linking to the actin filaments in the cytoskeleton, and in the extracellular matrix it is linking to the fibronectin and other collagen fibers as well. So first of all, discussing about fibronectin. Fibronectin, the word is derived from the Latin word fibra, which means fibers, and nexus, which means interconnection. Nexus means connection and fibra means fiber. So it is going to connect something. Fibronectin is synthesized largely by the fibroblast. It is about 235 to 270 kilodalton. It is dimeric molecule and has binding sites for collagen and certain glycosaminoglycans. It forms an insoluble fibril network throughout the connective tissue. It forms a network throughout the connective tissue, and it is going to link in the some gags as well. The fibronectin substrate provides a specific binding sites for integrin. You can see in the picture, it is the transmembrane integrin. Fibronectin is binding to integrin and to the collagen in the extracellular matrix. So it is linking these molecules. Fibronectin substrate provides specific binding site for integrin, and it is important for the cell adhesion and cellular migration through the extracellular matrix. So the functions are, it is going to adhere to the cell, help in the migration of the cell, and it is going to provide binding site for collagen, integrin. You can see collagen on the upper part and integrin is also binding on the lower part, and it is also going to bind to some other gas as well. Now laminin, this glycoprotein is basically concentrated in the basal lamina of the epithelium and in the external lamina surrounding the nerves and the muscle cells, and in the adipocyte, and in the nerve cell you can see it in the Schwann cell. So this laminin, as in the name is indicating, it is going to be concentrated in the lamina, basal lamina. And the function it is going to adhere to the basal lamina, anchor the cells to the basal lamina, and it is going to form binding sites for collagen type 4, as collagen type 4 is also found in the basal lamina, and it is going to form a binding site for integrin, the transmembrane protein, the transmembrane receptor proteins, and some gags. It is going to be present in basal lamina. This question is very important. Where is laminin present? As the name is indicating, it is going to be present in basal lamina, and in the basal lamina it is going to anchor to the this cytoskeleton proteins as well as to collagen type 4, which is present in the basal lamina. Next you have integrin. The integrin family of integral membrane proteins acts as matrix receptor. They act as matrix receptors and they serve as a transmembrane link between the cells to adhere to the components of extracellular matrix. They act as a transmembrane receptor linking the cellular part with the extracellular matrix. This molecule is a heterodimer with alpha and beta chains. The head portion extends from the cell surface into the extracellular matrix, where it interacts with sites on the fibronectin, laminin, collagen, and other matrix component. So it is going to act as a link between cell and the extracellular component. These are the matrix receptors as well. So this is a view, and this is a structure of an integrin receptor. You can see two units, alpha subunit and beta subunit. It is a heterodimeric. It is going to have alpha unit and beta unit, and this is going to form the transmembrane part. The two black solid lines are showing the plasma membrane. So these green and blue lines, they are the transmembrane parts of the integrin matrix protein, and then it is linking to the extracellular matrix protein in the extracellular matrix, as well as it is linking to the this talin, vinculin, actin filaments which are present in the cellular component intracell just beneath the plasma membrane. So it is linking extracellular component and the intracellular component, and it is going to act as receptors as well on the surface of the cell. In this diagram, you can again see a plasma membrane, the lipid bilayer of the plasma membrane, and then passing through the plasma membrane, the blue part is the integrin, the transmembrane protein or the transmembrane receptors. The intracellular part of this blue part is linking to the microfilaments of the cytoskeleton, and then you have the transmembrane part, the part between the membrane, and then the extra above the membrane, it is linking to fibronectin and the proteoglycan complex. So integrin is spanning through the plasma membrane. Clinical correlates of proteoglycans. The degradation of proteoglycans is carried out by several cell types and depends on the presence of several lysosomal enzymes. You know, lysosomes, they are going to remove the unwanted substances, the excess of any substances. So if these are not, there is defective lysosomal activity, or they are not, enzymes are not present there, the normal degradation process is not going to take place, and this is going to result in lysosomal storage disease. A number of lysosomal storage disease have been known, and they depend on the deficiency of certain lysosomal enzymes. And due to the deficiency of certain lysosomal enzymes, the degradation of certain GAGs and glycoproteins and proteoglycans cannot take place, and this results in the accumulation of these macromolecules in the tissue, and this is going to result in different diseases when they are going to be increased in these levels of these macromolecules. So mucopolysaccharidosis. Mucopolysaccharidosis is a condition, it's a genetic disorder in which there is deficiency of enzymes that are necessary for the breakdown of mucopolysaccharides. If the mucopolysaccharides are not broken down by the lysosomal enzymes, this is going to result in excessive accumulation of these mucopolysaccharides in the body tissues, and this is going to result in harmful effects. If these the levels of these mucopolysaccharides, these proteoglycans and glycoproteins are going to be increased and GAGs are going to be increased, this is going to result in number of defects in the body, and this is going to result in different symptoms and appearance of diseases. A number of mucopolysaccharidosis have been discovered by the pathologists. There's type 1, 2, 3, 4, different types. They are known as Huller's disease, Hunter's disease, Sanfilippo's disease, Morquio's disease, syndromes. These syndromes depend on the GAGs that have been accumulated and depend upon the deficiency of the enzymes that result in the degradation of these GAGs. If there is excess dermatan sulfate and heparan sulfate, this is going to result in Huller syndrome or Hunter syndrome. And heparan sulfate is excessive, this is going to result in type 3 Sanfilippo syndrome. You just need to know what is mucopolysaccharidosis at your level. The clinical picture that results from excessive mucopolysaccharidosis is there is defects in the facial features, flat nose, thick lips, the height is short, hearing defects are there, abnormal bone size, developmental delays, mental retardation, enlarged organs, heart, liver, spleen. Because of the excess GAGs and glycoproteins, these organs are enlarged in size, and this can result in overload, volume overload, heart defects, and respiratory problems, because there is going to be overload on the body. So in the beginning of this chapter, we studied four basic tissues: the epithelial tissue, connective tissue, nervous tissue, and the muscular tissue. So guys, which tissue do you think is the most important one? God Almighty has created all these tissues for some purpose. Every tissue serves as a specific purpose. Connective tissue is the gluing tissue. It is going to glue all the tissues together. So you can think over it. Think over this comic strip. And if you have any question and query, do ask me.